This is one of the greatest rags to riches tech stories ever told, and it was done with junk. Here's the most popular highlight. He taught me that you have to do your research and that if you don't stay on top of reading about other people's ideas, you never come up with ideas yourself. It's good to learn from others. That is great advice. What's ironic is that it came from Willis Johnson's father, who didn't know how to read. Willis's mother would read him the newspaper each morning, and his father would find opportunities to make money as an entrepreneur. Yeah, you heard that right. Willis Johnson is the billionaire founder of Copart. His father didn't have money to give him, but he gave him something better: determination. That's lesson 1, have unwavering determination. He never stopped. Lesson 2, specialize. When Willis returned from Vietnam, that part of the book was intense. The whole book is so good. He got a loan for a junkyard lot with basically a shed, and that is where his new family would live. He struggled to compete. At the time, Chrysler, Dodge, and Plymouth were not cars that dismantlers wanted to have because they weren't hot-selling items. So we made the decision to specialize in Chrysler, Dodge, and Plymouth. All the other dismantlers thought I was crazy. He went from selling $3,500 of junk, car parts, a month to $3,500 of junk per day. Niches too small for big business can be big business for little startups to specialize in. 3, struggle to make the customer not struggle. At the time, junkyards would sell an entire engine outside as a whole package. Willis pulled out all the parts, made it clean, and sold them individually indoors. It was better for everyone, and this was like the Apple Store of junkyards. What I like though, if you see the pictures, I immediately think, oh my God, that must have been so much work and living in a shed, and he doesn't even mention how hard any of that was. He is just super positive. 4, let me find that for you. Junkyards were like treasure hunts. There were thousands of makes and models, different years, conditions of parts, missing parts. People just searched and hoped because it was an incredibly complex set of inventory that lives in junkyards. So Willis became one of the first businesses to computerize inventory. I spent $110,000 on a large reel-to-reel computer, about double the amount that most people spent on a house at that time. Other junkyards thought I was crazy or stupid or maybe both, but it was like magic for customers to have instant access to parts from all over California. As Willis expanded, he had a mesh network of shared data. The power of data analytics, and you know what that is gold. The more data, the more gold. Junk to gold. 5, open source for progress. Willis started selling so many cars that the DMV ran out of car title books. Not to mention the whole process of handwritten titles created a nightmare of problems for customers and his business. I spent about $40,000 building the computerized system for the state of California. Now we could go to the computer and fill out all the paperwork needed and didn't have to wait for books. It sped up the whole process and was an example of how it pays to fix something yourself instead of waiting for someone else to solve the problem for you. Instead of saying F the DMV like everyone else, he said, no, I'm gonna fix this problem for everyone. I'm gonna open source software to help everyone, even the DMV. Fantastic. 6, be your customer's most valuable partner. When Willis started auctioning junked cars for insurance companies, he knew that they were losing money. They didn't want to pay full price to shine up cars that were junk. So instead of charging them fees, he proposed a partnership where he would take a small commission on cars that they sold with no upfront costs. Throughout the book, he's just constantly finding ways to make the process more efficient and make his customers more money. 7, continuous improvement. By 1998, Copart upgraded to a nationwide computer system called CAS. Copart Auction Systems. But people were still bidding in person, and you needed to be a licensed rep to bid. So people were waiting around all day, and they had to pay reps $150 just to bid on cars. The process was ridiculous. So Jay, Willis's son-in-law and now CEO, asked customers, hey, what if you could bid online? They all said, no, that's a dumb idea. There's a product lesson here. Don't ask customers if they would use technology that they don't understand, because it's easier to say no than to admit that you don't know. So Jay walked them through the process. First, look at the cars. Now, instead of paying that dude $150 and waiting all day, you go make your bid on this computer for $35 and go home. That's 8. Do things that don't scale. Sometimes you need a concierge service to show buyers how to buy, and it took off. Word spread and they did $1 million in sales in their first quarter online. But Jay noticed that someone from out of state bought a car, and he was shocked because everybody told him that they would never buy a car without seeing it first. So he calls the guy up and the guy's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, but yeah, some pictures would be nice. So Copart added pictures to the online auction, and all of a sudden they were doing 10 million in sales from bids all over the world. 9. Cannibalize gracefully. The online bidding became so popular that it started to cannibalize their in-person auctions. And when they introduced live bidding, where people could instantly bid against each other, it became a real mess. Just imagine an auction and all of the 75, 80, 90, do I have 90? And a computer is just instantly ticking up the price, and it was just too much. You can't mix a mumbling auctioneer with computers. It created chaos. His employees were ready to quit. So they set up computer kiosks at some yards and showed people how to bid online. Once they tested it on a small scale, doing things that don't scale, they rolled it out to more yards. And people loved it. They naturally taught other people how to do it, more people bid, and insurance companies made more and more money. And I don't know about you, but that's what I live for, making insurance companies more money. They would then slowly roll the idea out to more yards, and slowly, Copart became the global leader in online vehicle auctions, selling over 175,000 vehicles per day. They are extremely successful. The NVIDIA of junk. 10. Losers focus on competition. What I left out is that this was a rivalry story, and Copart was the underdog. But their much larger competitor, IAA, was focused on things like revenue and number of auction sites. We call those vanity metrics. They were constantly trying to sabotage Copart's acquisition of junkyards. But Copart didn't focus on short-term revenue. They were concerned about continuous improvement for their customers and employees. And Willis believed that if he took care of his employees, especially the talent from new acquisitions, that they would in turn take better care of their end customers, the customers of his customers. He paid everyone well and even gave junkyards that were going under full market value in Copart shares, when he knew that they could both win. It's such a good book, and there is so many more business lessons that I didn't even get a chance to cover. Obviously, Copart won, and that is because losers focus on the competition and winners focus on the customer. You got this.